there are some very obvious differences between the opera Romeo and Juliet and the Shakespearean Romeo and Juliet. First off, in Shakespeare, we open with the prologue. So we start with the chorus coming out and saying, hey, this is the story. And then we go into the scenes. So that is the same in the opera. But what's different is that in the opera, right after the prologue, we go directly into the ball. So what Gounod did is he made the entirety of Act 1 all happen at the ball. So the scenes that are in Shakespeare's play for Act 1 are reordered, condensed, and cut to all take place at the ball. So in the play, we have not only Lady Capulet, we have Lady Montague as well. Both are gone in the opera. We have 2 additional characters on the Capulet side and 2 additional characters on the Montague side. Now, what's fascinating is that in the opera, we've kept Gregorio, who is Gregory in the play, but we've added for the Capulets Stefano, who's a pants role sung by a soprano. And that role is nowhere to be found in the Shakespeare play. It does not exist, so it's an additional role in the opera. On top of this, the other sort of like obvious change, and this is not a spoiler if you know Romeo and Juliet, is that in Act 5 of the play, Juliet is asleep, she has taken the potion, Romeo comes in, he sees Juliet, he gives her a kiss, he takes the poison, and he dies. Juliet wakes up the moment after Romeo has passed away. So when Juliet wakes up, Romeo is already dead in front of her. In the opera, we have this incredible crossover time where Romeo has taken the poison, is waiting for it to take effect, and Juliet wakes up. And there's a moment where it seems like maybe somehow Romeo can untake the poison and we can escape together and we can run off together. And there's this incredible, beautiful duet that happens before inevitably the poison hits Romeo and he dies. And Juliet, as he's dying in front of Romeo, takes his dagger and takes her own life. So Romeo is aware that Juliet is dying and Juliet is aware that Romeo is dying. And so they actually end up dying together, asking God to forgive them for their sins. So we have this moment of unity at the end with the 2 of them in the opera that we don't get in the play. French Grand Opera is all in the title, French Grand Opera. It's all right there. It is all about extra. So not only do we have beautiful music and a big orchestra, we have a ballet chorus, we have a giant singing chorus, we have supers who are going to be doing the fights. It's everything you could think of. Throughout the movement of the opera, there's always opportunity for bigger, grander, more. It's not that we're having a small street fight with 2 people. We're having a street fight with 2 people and their friends, and the entire chorus is watching, and it's always extra. So I think that this Romeo and Juliet as a story gives a really good foundation for a grand opera. I think it was a really smart adaptation for Gounod to do. When I'm thinking about staging and movement on stage and how bodies interact in space and how we see physicality on stage, I'm thinking not only about where I want the audience to look, but I'm thinking about what we learn from body language and posture. You know, if we're looking at the character of Romeo, he starts off essentially as a downer of a rain cloud. He has been broken up with, he is sad, he misses his ex, Rosalind, like, it's all not good for him. And the way that posture is reflected from the time we meet him to the moment he sees Juliet for the first time, to showing up in Act 2, and really being this heroic romantic character, it's an evolution of shoulders. It's an evolution of shoulders forward to shoulders back. And those little things make a world of difference on stage. Throughout Romeo and Juliet, we have a lot of moments of tension. We have almost fights breaking out. We have almost kisses. We have almost meetings. It's a story of almost, in a way. And how we release that tension, or how we allow ourselves to sit back as audience members, are these little mini interlude scenes. So the way that it's woven throughout the opera, both musically and storytelling-wise, is that as we're entering one sort of musical theme and like things are building, another character will enter, and with that character will bring a new energy, a new musical energy, and usually a completely new theme, instruments, the whole kit and caboodle. There's so clearly choices that were made by Gounod musically to go from like these long emotional musical lines that are legato and in major keys, and then all of a sudden we'll break that moment and it will be these really clear chords that are staccato, that have more of a bouncy flavor to it, and on will come another character. So you could close your eyes and listen to this opera. It's what makes it one of the great pieces, and enjoy the story and know where we're going. I always love that as a director, following the roadmap that the music gives me and finding how to make those interruptions and those releases extra potent and extra effective. What's wonderful about Romeo and Juliet is that when you come to it as a young person, when you come to it at 13, 14, 15, your reaction is as bubbly and powerful as coming to it as an adult. I came to this as a young person, falling in love with love through Romeo and Juliet. As a young person, you are seeing their love story unfold. You're ideally going on this journey with them and going like, yes, that is what love is. That is true love, a balcony scene. I begged my parents for a balcony. I was told no on many occasions. I was devastated. But that want for romance, that want for someone to be chosen, for both Romeo and Juliet, for someone to see you how you want to be seen, and for someone to seemingly instantly understand you, is a story that resonates throughout time and space. The concept for the show, for the costumes, is late 90s, early 2000s fairy tale movies. It's very colorful, there's a lot of different textures, and that was to evoke a timeless fairy tale that young people, ideally, when they see it, can connect to from a place of fantasy, from a place of excitement, and something that's a little removed from them. With a young performer, or with a performer who is coming to the role for the first time, there is a curiosity. There is a discovery of each of these beats. There is a moment of, well, what does that mean? And who am I talking to? And why am I talking to him? And they're answering all these questions for the first time. So it's a process that is has a more immediacy and has more potential for rediscovery of the moments. What's wonderful about it for Romeo and Juliet is that, of course, these characters, Romeo and Juliet specifically, are discovering each other for the first time. So as we work on building the relationship between Romeo and Juliet, the cast is also working on their feelings about the story of Romeo and Juliet and what they want to tell and how they're telling it and what the text is doing and what the music is doing. And so there's a lot more back and forth that's really exciting and creates an atmosphere of play and creates an atmosphere of like, it's not going to be perfect the first time. It shouldn't be perfect the first time. It should never be perfect. It should always be new. It should always be different. And what I invite young performers to do is to try something else. You don't like that staging? Try something else. You don't like that, the way we did that? Try something else. Because this is the time for experiment and play. And so what we're finding are some different and new takes on moments that have been set, even for me, who's been sitting with this show for a while. As a director, my room is a consent-forward room. I believe in the power of no, and I believe in the importance of creating work in a space where everyone feels supported to do their best work, and everyone feels supported to make scary choices or push themselves. And the only way we can do that is with respect, understanding, transparency, and clarity. On this production of Romeo and Juliet, one thing that I wanted to experiment with was, what does touch and intimacy mean for these characters in this place, in this time. And since we are setting it in this fairy tale time period, we can resensitize touch. And when I say resensitize touch, I mean that we can look at the importance of the first time you hold hands with someone. We can heighten those moments of space. We can heighten the moments of breath. I talk about the importance of that in the room so that the cast can understand that it doesn't just have to either be we're far apart or we're fake making out. There's a whole range of things that happen before a first kiss. And what I think is really important is that there is an open dialogue between the director and the cast, and the intimacy director, if intimacy director is needed for a production, about boundaries, about how everyone's feeling about the staging and what questions might come up. For me, in this production of Romeo and Juliet, the furthest we're going to go as far as like simulating sex is a possible lip-to-lip contact kiss. That level of intimacy can be comfortably handled with a director who has had the proper training to understand the power dynamics at play in a university setting. So I am never going to ask my cast to do something without giving them other outlets to have conversations with. I'm going to make sure that they always have a chance to sleep on any conversations we have or requests we might come up with in the room of, oh, does a handhold go here? How does this position feel? Because we have to have time to digest that as human beings. And that is an important and crucial step that I think sometimes gets lost in making art. We want to go fast, we want to get it done, we did it, it's done, you said yes in the room, and now it's done. And that doesn't leave any room for reflection, and it doesn't leave any room for reinvestigation of feelings. So for me, it's important to bring all of that to the table up front, and to keep it as an active part of the room throughout this process. And hopefully we're creating an ecosystem where there are many people, that singers, that crew members, that music staff, that anyone in the company can go to and express what needs to be expressed. I think we keep coming back to Romeo and Juliet because there's a little part of us that wants a different ending. And there's a little part of all of us that thinks, maybe this time Romeo will get the letter. Maybe this time he won't take the poison and she won't take the dagger. Maybe this time these two young people can run off together and figure out their lives. And I think it's because it is a whirlwind romance that set all whirlwind romances up. We come back to it because no matter what age we are, there's someone in the story we can identify with. As I grow up, who I identify with changes and shifts. Where I am in my life changes who I'm rooting for. There are times when I've come to this piece and Mercutio's story of this passion for his friends, of this unending love of his friends, and his want to protect them speaks volumes to me. I've come to it from the point of view of Lady Capulet, who is doing her best for her daughter, who is saying, you need to do this because this is the best way for me to keep you safe. There are lessons throughout Romeo and Juliet that speak to you as a creator and as an audience member, no matter what age you are. And why I think we keep doing this piece, and why I think we keep adapting this piece, and why I think we keep questioning this piece, is because we think there's always something else. There's always something else to be explored. And I don't think we'll ever stop telling the story of Romeo and Juliet, because it's all of us. We've all been Romeo or Juliet. We've all been Mercutio. We've all been Tybalt. We've all been Capulet. We've all been Friar Lawrence, the one who's trying to help, but, sort of biffs it. And And because of that, we will continue to come back to this story. It is a well that will not go dry. There are the highest of highs and the lowest of lows. Like, there is no pure emotional state than your teens. That is the most drama, the most passion, the most sadness. There is a well of feelings in these humans that diminishes as we get older. So why not go back, remind ourselves of a time when our biggest hardship was that we couldn't see the person that we liked.